Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about hate and anger. Um, more specifically, less hate and less anger. Do you sometimes find that you're just angry? Me too. Me too. I deal with that too. I think it is part of the human experience. So while this is called less hate and anger, it starts with acknowledging that to some extent, it's always going to be there in some way. If you have found a way to eliminate it completely, like you never experience anger and you never experience hate, please message me. Tell me your secrets. um, and and do I? So I the other thing that the other thing that I'm curious about is if you might think you are never experiencing it, it could also be possible that you're not aware of it. That's that could be true. I'm not saying for sure, but if you don't experience much of it, maybe you're not aware of it. Okay. Um, well, especially when dealing with a physical limitation, if you're impacted by some disability or a disease or chronic illness, it's very possible that hate and anger are coming in and out of your life pretty frequently. And it's possible also to reduce that. It's possible to experience it a little less often. How's that promise? Hey, here's what I can promise you today. You're going to experience anger and hate just a little less often than you currently experience it. Um, but here's the thing. If we can reduce it just a little bit, or maybe a lot, but even if we reduce it just a little bit, what comes from that? A little less hurt and a little less pain. Um, so I'm going to share, let's see, two or three recent experiences. And just to talk a little bit about this topic of anger and hate, how it shows up and how it's shown up for me. And then I will share what to do. Um, and if you will try the things that I'm going to share, it will change your life. It will absolutely change your life. Because these steps that I'll share at the end of this, they seem simple. They seem insignificant, but I'm telling you, they changed everything for me. And it can do so much for you too. Um, so let's dive into this. As a reminder, there's a link you can click, chandlerlifecoaching.com/more content, where you can be added to the email list and I'll send you these notes. I'll send you these notes plus some of the tips I'll be sharing at the end of this. So, here we go. A few experiences I have had recently. One, I was on the bus. I was coming home from work. I take the bus to and from work every day. I've been doing that for like, how many? 8, 9 years. And I witnessed something that's never happened on, oh my word, if you think about the number of times I've been on the bus, 9 years, twice a day, thousands, right? Is that right? Yeah. I've been on this bus thousands of times, and I've never witnessed what I saw happen. Some of you might be like, wow, you've never seen this happen? Well, yeah, so what happened? We came to a stop, a bus stop. There were some, I'm going to just say teenage, I don't know the exact age, some teenage boys, and in the bus driver's words, he said they were horsing around. I didn't see them. I didn't see what was going on, but they were horsing around. What I took from that was, in some shape or form, they were kind of pushing each other around, and they pushed one of the boys pushed the other boy into the street just as the bus was arriving. And the bus driver, of course, was extremely afraid because he almost hit this teenager. He got pushed in the street just as the bus was arriving, and um, so when the bus came to a stop, he opened the door, and the boys were going to jump on it, and the bus driver said, "No, I'm not letting you on this bus. I saw you horsing around, and you almost caused a terrible situation by pushing your friend into the street just as I was arriving, and with this kind of behavior that I'm seeing from you, I'm not comfortable with you being on this bus." And one of the teenage boys immediately resisted and fought, and he just stepped onto the bus, and the bus driver said, "You're not allowed on this bus." And the boy said, I'm paying. I'm gonna go find a seat." And the bus driver said, "No, you're not. If you're gonna stay on this bus isn't going to move." And the boy said, "Really?" And he just like was going off, and he's like, "I'm gonna call my grandpa." And he just gets on his phone. He puts on speakerphone, says, "Grandpa, this bus driver isn't letting me on the bus, and what happened?" And he says that I did this and that. Anyway, the boy's like, "Do you have some video footage?" He was denying what the bus driver was saying the bus driver was a liar, and so the bus driver said, "Yes, we have video footage." He calls the central line people and says, "Do we have the footage?" And they said, "Yes, but it won't be available till tomorrow." Anyway, this goes on, and then the teenager says, "Oh, so you don't have the video." They just kept arguing, okay? You kind of get an idea. I've shared enough details. There's this argument, and the bus driver refuses to continue. He says, "If you stay, as I said before, this bus isn't going to move till you get off." And the boy wouldn't get off. And the bus driver said, "Okay, well, we can just wait here until the police arrive and escort you off the bus." And the boy just stayed. And like 5 minutes goes by. 10 minutes goes by. 15 minutes goes by. And I'm like, oh my word. I'm just sitting here, along with like probably 30 other people. It was a decently full bus with like 30 other people, and we're all just sitting there for 15 minutes. And of course, late to whatever we had planned next. And so those were some of my thoughts, right? And I started to feel angry. I was like, whew. I had some real anger building up in me, and it was coming from this thought. I was thinking, this boy is so disrespectful. Do you see that you're just holding up over 30 people because you're having this power struggle with this bus driver? And it was just so fascinating, okay? Just like getting into anger and experiencing anger. I don't know if I hadn't experienced it for a while, but I was really like taken back by it. I was like, it was powerful in me, right? And if you experience anger, and if you've experienced anger, if you haven't noticed, you'll notice next time. Just pay attention. It's a powerful emotion. And that's part of the reason why we go to it, is because of there's some usefulness in it, right? There is some useful energy that comes. It's that like power. It's quite energizing. Your blood flow increases. You just get this kind of energy. And so in many situations, anger can serve us. And if you think about the evolution of humans and the times when we've needed lots of energy and strength, anger assists that process. But how often do we really need that right now? In our current society, in our day-to-day lives, do we need that strength, that energy? Is that really something that's going to serve us? That is the question, right? So that's something to always pay attention to. So when I'm feeling this strong emotion, and what it was compelling me to do is to yell at this boy. I'm like, it was on like the tip of my tongue. This sentence kept running through my brain. I wanted to stand up and yell so badly. I just wanted to yell, "Dude, get off the bus!" Those exact words. They ran over and over my head, and I just felt so compelled to just yell. That's what the anger was doing for me. And here's the thing. What as I process this, and I'll talk more about the steps, okay? I'm not going to go through all the steps now. I will after I share the second story. But real quickly, I just want to say that this anger felt powerful. And it felt so powerful in me that it made me, it was a lie that was trying to persuade me that I had enough power to solve the problem, right? I'm a passenger on the bus, and there's been this argument with the bus driver and this teenage boy, and the anger, the emotion in me was trying to tell me that I could solve this. If I just yell, if I just go and confront this teenager, I can be the solution. And I started to like see that and become aware of that. I'm like, you know what? I think I might be thinking I'm more powerful than I really am right now. I don't know for sure. Maybe if I did say something, he would get off the bus. I don't know. But here's two things I know for sure. Number one, I was in hurt. Yes, anger felt powerful, but it also hurt. It did not feel good. And that's why I was so compelled to try and solve the problem. I was so uncomfortable. I was having that hurt of anger inside me that I thought maybe I ought to power myself over this boy, force him off the bus so we can move on with our days and so that I can feel better. Right? Number two, if I had acted on this anger, it's likely, not certain, but likely, I would have created more hurt. I could have created more hurt emotionally and or physically for that boy, or for the others on the bus, or for myself. So those are two things I know for certain. One, I wasn't hurt. Two, if I had acted on that anger, I likely would have created more hurt. All right, story number two. A family member I was with recently said, I hate my body. All right, so the first story is about anger. This next story is about hate. He said, I hate my body. They deal with a chronic illness, and because of things they have to do related to their illness, it's like a day-to-day thing, and it's challenging. And this challenge came up, and it was again because of his disease, and said, I hate my body. And I just, when I heard that, I of course thought of the many years dealing with rheumatoid arthritis that I thought that about my body, that I said I hate my body. And I just wonder, here's my question to you. I mean, do you find yourself saying that? What is your view of your body? The first step is just to be curious on whether or not this is something you're saying to yourself. What is your story about your body? I used to have that story. I used to think that a lot. And what I found over the years, well, here's two things I know about from this experience, from hating my body for many years. One, just like the first story, hate does not feel good. It doesn't feel good. If you just get in touch with the emotion, the vibration in your body, if you're experiencing anger or hate, it doesn't feel great. Number two, the hate that I had for my body for many years blinded me from critical information that I needed in order to heal. What I needed for so many years that I was blinded from was to understand my stories. The stories I had about my body and about my pain. But as long as I kept hating my body, what do you do relative to things that you hate? We direct our attention away from the things that we hate. That's a natural reaction in the nervous system, in the body, in the fight and flight system. It's like we're distancing ourselves from things that are a threat in some way, and we're getting closer to things that bring pleasure. So because I was hating my body, I actually was directing my attention away from my body. I was directing my attention away from the stories I had about my body. And I mean, all I focused on for all those years were the things I hated. I focused on the pain that I experienced there all the time. I focused on the fatigue I experienced, the joint pain, all the ways that it limited my life. That became my focus. And do you know what the result was? I just stayed in a whole lot of hurt. and frustration. I stayed in a whole lot of hate, right? So, okay, one little final example I'll share is recently, where my hate and anger I find sometimes is directed towards is doctors and medicine. I have worked through the hate for my body. I no longer hate my body. I still have rheumatoid arthritis, but I don't hate my body anymore. I have changed how I relate to myself and to my body, and that reduced so much pain. It reduced so much hurt, so much frustration. Like I said at the very beginning, hate and anger to some extent still stays around. And so, I mean, I had it just recently on the bus, right? That experience I shared previously about being on the bus. I also experience it often toward doctors and medicine. I'm taking medicine regularly, giving myself an injection every 2 weeks to treat my RA, and I find myself angry at times. And so I practice these same steps I'm about to share with you. I practice them every time I experience this hate or this anger. I practiced it 5 years ago to get out of hate towards myself and my body, and now I continue to practice these steps as I experience hate and anger toward other things like doctors, medicine, teenagers who refuse to get off the bus. So let's talk about what these steps are. Step number 1, notice. I mean, we just have to notice. That is number 1, keeping us from working through the hate and the anger, is that we don't even realize that we're experiencing it. Or we know that we're experiencing it, but we aren't seeing the impact of it. We just still are lacking awareness about what's causing the anger or hate and what it's creating for us. Okay? Step number 2, breathe. Allow the emotion. This is the part that I had to practice so diligently with this recent experience on the bus. I was sitting there full of anger, and it was so powerful and it was so strong. And I very consciously took some breaths. I was just like, whew. And I even closed my eyes a few times. I just breathed. And I just brought my attention to my body. I'm like, wow, let me just feel that vibration. Like, that is powerful. And I just got to experience and allow the anger. When we aren't noticing it, when we aren't breathing through it, that's what leads us often to reacting. If I did not notice I was in anger, if I did not breathe, if I didn't do the next step I'll also share with you, I likely would have stood up and yelled and said, dude, just get off the bus. And then he probably would have yelled back at me like he had already been doing the bus driver, and then it would have escalated. Maybe some other passengers on the bus would have been motivated by what I said, and they would start yelling, and who knows, and then it could have escalated even further, and it could have led to all these bad outcomes. It could have been a good outcome. I don't know. I don't really know. But what I know is that I would have been reacting from a place of anger, and in my experience, that usually doesn't lead to a great outcome. Step number 3, understand what the hate or anger is. What it is creating for you. Sorry, I was going to say where it's coming from. So that's part of what it's creating for you. So you want to understand where it's coming from and what it is creating for you. So it's coming from your thoughts. Always. This is the error that we make, and I just attended another like a workshop about anxiety and stress. I was just curious. That was another moment where I experienced some anger. I was actually feeling some anger during that, because when they talked about these emotions of anxiety and stress, they talked about the circumstances, the situations that cause it, like family difficulty, like financial distress, like job instability. You know, all of these factors that are outside of us. And I know things outside us don't create our emotions. Stress and anxiety is not created by financial distress. What creates stress and anxiety is what we're thinking. about our financial situation. In this case, hate and anger, and the example I shared, that teenager on the bus was not creating my anger. This is so important because I knew this, I was able to resolve my anger without kicking the teenager off the bus, right? If I thought that the teenager was causing my anger, then I likely would have acted out of anger, and I could have escalated the situation and caused something not so great. Your hate and your anger is not coming from things outside of you. So I'll come to the example also I shared about doctors and medicine, or my body, right? For many years I hated my body, I hated my RA, but the hate I was experiencing, the emotion I was experiencing was not because of my body. It's currently not because of doctors or medicine. They can't create my feelings. No one outside you can create the emotions inside you. The emotions inside you come from the thoughts you are having. So the thoughts I'm having about doctors and the thoughts I'm having about the medicine I need to take every 2 weeks, those thoughts are creating hate. Okay? So understand the source of the hate or anger, and that's always your thoughts. And then also understand what the hate and anger is creating for you inside your body. What is it like? What's it creating inside your body? Does it feel good? I don't know. We got to stay open. Maybe it does feel good for you. Does it feel good? There could be some usefulness to it. Like I said, there could be some sense of power that comes from it, or other things. We just want to get curious and pay attention. What is it creating inside of you? And then you also want to look at, hey, what is it compelling me to do? When I'm feeling hate or anger, what am I compelled to do? It doesn't mean you have to take action on that thing, right? I stopped myself from taking action, but I was aware of what action I wanted to take when I was sitting on the bus. I started watching myself. I started paying attention to what this anger was compelling me to do. And then I also brought awareness to, hey, what outcome might that lead to? If I take that action and I yell, what might that lead to? And, of course, when you're trying to look forward and predict the future, that's always difficult. So we don't always know the outcome. But like I said before, I also know that my actions would have come from anger, and my experience generally is that might not lead to the greatest outcome. Right? Okay, so that's step 3. Understand the source of the hate or the anger and what it's creating for you. All right. Step 4. Ask yourself what thought is creating that emotion. Okay, that's related to step 3. Right? Step 3 is this acknowledging this is coming from my thoughts, because sometimes it's challenging to kind of have that introspection while you're in the emotion. Sometimes, step 1, that's why earlier I said breathe, right? Notice the emotion, breathe and allow it. And then sometimes I just tell myself, this is coming from a thought. This is coming from a thought. The emotion, especially anger and hate, might be so intense that I might not be able to access the thought right away. It might be hard for me because I'm just like overcome by the emotion. So I just breathe and I just allow the emotion to be there. And then when you're ready to, maybe when it becomes a little less intense, you can create awareness around what is the thought? Like, what's going through my head right now that's creating this anger, that's creating this hate. All right. And finally, if you want to resolve that hate or that anger, the final step is to challenge the thought that's behind that emotion. Challenge it. So these are the questions that I practiced while I was sitting there on the bus filled with anger. I asked myself, what if I'm wrong about this? Because actually the thought I was thinking is that this teenager was being so disrespectful. That's the thought that was creating my anger. He's being so disrespectful. Doesn't he see that there's over 30 people sitting here? He's like kind of holding us all hostage. We just want to get home, or wherever we're headed. We want to get to our next destination, and this teenage boy is requiring, like forcing all, holding us all hostage, you know? He's being so disrespectful. That was my thought, and that is what was creating the anger for me. And so once I saw that thought, I asked myself, what if I'm wrong about this? What if I'm wrong? What if the teenager is not being disrespectful? And I was like, hey, what if the bus driver is being disrespectful? And then I got angry at the bus driver. Actually, not really. But it just helped me loosen it up a little bit. It opened my mind. It loosened that thought as soon as I considered that I might be wrong and maybe someone else is to blame. Maybe it's the bus driver. Or maybe it is the friends of that teenager who pushed him in the street. Whatever that situation was, maybe it's them. Maybe it's not the teenager's fault. Maybe he's not being disrespectful. Maybe I'm wrong about this. And, you know, but that's all that I needed was I just was like, oh, maybe the bus driver is being disrespectful. Maybe the bus driver is being a bit extreme to stop the bus until this boy gets off the bus. You know, and that alone softened the emotion for me. It softened. It loosened my grip on this thought that was causing my anger. Okay, here's some other questions you can ask yourself to challenge the thought. You can ask, does it serve me to keep thinking this thought? Another one you can ask is, how can I loosen my grip on this thought? Another one is, hey, what else might be true? Another one is, what concern or fear underlying this thought can I resolve? Because there's usually some type of underlying belief or paradigm that is leading to reactions. My reaction was, this teenager is being disrespectful. My underlying belief is that when an authority, which in this case I was viewing the bus driver as the authority, when an authority asks you to get off the bus, you respect that authority and you get off the bus. That's my paradigm, right? And I was viewing the bus driver as the authority and has the right to say this. And so because I was kind of operating from that underlying belief, I had this thought that the teenager is being disrespectful. Anyway, you can just kind of inspect, what are these underlying beliefs or concerns? That was the underlying belief for me. What was the concern? Ultimately, my concern was, I actually had taken I had taken a bus that came 30 minutes earlier than I usually take. And so I was excited about getting home from work 30 minutes earlier than usual. And it just so happened on the day that I took this earlier bus, we get held hostage for almost 30 minutes. I got home at the exact same time as I usually get home. So that's what was going on for me when I'm sitting there waiting. It's like, man, I was going to get 30 extra minutes with my kids at home. And now I'm not. And it's all because of this teenager. So of course you can see it's all valid, right? All of my reasons for being angry are valid. But that doesn't mean the anger was serving me. It still wasn't serving me. It was only causing hurt in me. And it was compelling me to possibly do things that would cause more hurt. And so how to resolve that, I also did a little work on that while I sat there. I'm like, hey, I mean, is it the end of the world that I don't get this extra 30 minutes that I thought I'd get? And once I just answered that question, the answer was no. It's not the end of the world. It's okay. That also helped loosen my grip on this painful thought and this emotion. Another one you can ask is, you can direct it towards God. Say, God, our Heavenly Father, what do you think about this thought that I'm thinking? And you can look to Him for some insight. All right, that is what I have for you. These experiences around hate and anger that are so common, it's part of life. It's especially common when dealing with the impact of a physical limitation. And we can do real work with these kinds of questions, these kinds of tools I just shared with you. We can do real work that makes a huge difference in the way that we experience ourselves, the way we experience others, the way we experience our life, and how much hurt and pain we're creating for ourselves. We can completely change that experience. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you'd like these notes around these questions and tools, make sure you're on that list. I'll email it to you. Please share any other comments you have. Comments, questions, feedback, other stories you've had related to hate and anger and the possibility of maybe having a little bit less of it. Have a wonderful week. Speak to you all next time.